My name is Will Johns. Thank you. What's your name?
So, Will, let's go back a little bit. What was tell a little bit about your family tree, who your mother was, who your two aunts were, who they married, and what your early memories are of being associated with these legends.
Okay, well, I guess I was born into just a musical family tree. But before that, even before that, my mum, I guess, had the same performing ability, and she was a child actress. And her most, I guess, notable role that she landed was Enid Blyton's famous Five on the television. But she also did TV commercials for lovely jubbly orange juice, amongst other things. And she was actually the breadwinner before her older sisters, who were to go on to be even more famous, Patty and Jenny Boyd. Both of them, I think, first of all, were models. And while modeling, Patty caught the eye of George Harrison, Mr. Marveloso, if you will, from the Beatles. And at the same time, my auntie Jenny was dating a drummer by the name of Mick Fleetwood. They were, you know, teen sweethearts, I believe. So so then the next thing that happened was that George and Patty fell in love, and they were to be married, and that changed everything for the girls. And my mum, in particular, she was still at school. The rules changed as far as the headmistress of the school would give her special treatment because, well, her sister was married to a Beatle. So my mum was allowed to go into the office and smoke cigarettes when the other kids at school would be, you know, getting suspended for such a crime. So it kind of made things, turn things on their head. And I think that you know, that had a lasting effect on my mum, that the rules didn't apply, if you like. So Jenny Boyd, she went on to marry Mick Fleetwood, of Fleetwood Mac. And at the beginning, of course, Fleetwood Mac were a very, very serious blues band. The T-shirt that I'm wearing, the Crawdaddy Club, this was a club, a musical place in Richmond and Twickenham. It had a couple of different venues that it shared, and it was the birthplace of the Rolling Stones. I just performed at the Crawdaddy Club, I think it was in April, and it was actually 60 years to the day that the Beatles went and met the Rolling Stones. At the Crawdaddy Club.
Wow.
The other people that would have been hanging around at the Crawdaddy Club that were there in the Thames Delta at the time would have been people like Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, to name but a few. You know, it was a centralized hub. The club was run by a guy called Giorgio Gomelowski, and actually it finished probably in the late 60s. It just sort of disappeared, and I myself reopened it in the mid 90s with a friend of mine, Ian McHugh, at its original site at the Station Hotel, which is actually opposite Richmond Station in West London. And I used to hold jam nights every Tuesday, weekly, where local musicians, lost souls, if you like, could come and jam with other like-minded musicians, bluesers really, but anything was allowed. And I did that for a couple of years, until I returned to the States on my second attempt of fame and fortune in Hollywood. Should I go on, Alan? Eric Clapton being a huge influence on me, both musically and also when I was growing up. I would spend most of my weekends and school holidays at the Clapton residence, because my Auntie Patty, who was with George Harrison, then married Eric. Patty could never have children, and there was a certain time when Patty and Eric thought about fostering me or adopting me, as my home life was somewhat tumultuous with my mum's addiction problems and her new partners, who weren't really doing anything to help her, but more feeding her problems, really, whether that was a control situation or whatever. It certainly wasn't helping her. So I used to spend my time that I wasn't at school at Patty and Eric's house, and Eric was very kind to me. He showed me my first riff on guitar and inspired me that way. And he also taught me how to fish. I already had an interest in fishing, but I couldn't cast a rod, a conventional rod even. And he taught me how to cast a spinning rod. And then he also taught me the fine art of fly fishing, which is, of course, the old English gentleman's sport of casting a fly for a trout, which I know is very popular now worldwide. So really, he gave me the tools as a young man to not only feed myself with the fish that I might catch, but also to earn a living playing songs, which I later found out when I was on the streets of Oxford in between my college classes, and I found out that I could, make a few quid, enough to buy some noodles anyway. And that sort of set me up for life, really.
Well, that went off.
So what, I know we have a lot of huge Eric Clapton fans, a lot of huge George Harrison fans. I see Ronnie Wood there. Can you tell us a little bit about what they were like as you were growing up, as people, as a father figure, as examples, what they're like now? I know you were just recently fly fishing with Eric. What are these guys like back out off the stage?
Well, one thing that I guess one thing that made an impression on me, or that I respected from a very early age from hanging out with Eric, was that he still is very real. He's just himself. There's no affectations. And I guess as a kid, as a child, you know, you're very hyper aware of people putting on a voice for you, talking down to you, perhaps, you know, anything like that. You know, even if you don't mind it, you're still aware of it, you know, how people talk to you and how people make you feel. And for me, I think especially having parents who were altered by substances day in, day out, and the substances were wide and varied as well, whether it be alcohol or different kinds of drugs, you would find yourself talking to different people within the same person, if that makes sense. So just speaking about Eric anyway, he was always the same person day in and day out with me. And that's made an impression on me, and I think that I've been like that in my life, although it seems to rub some people up the wrong way. But some people think I'm arrogant, and I think, what the hell do they know?
Let's talk about Turn Up for Recovery, which I think is, you know, maybe the real reason we're here, and maybe one of the reasons you're on Earth, to help others. Can you tell us about Turn Up for Recovery, about Crossroads, and about what your ambassador role is?
Yeah. Obviously, from what I've mentioned, any way to help anybody struggling with addiction, as my mum did, anything that I could do to help somebody in that situation, because I know firsthand how hard it can be. And let me just say that with my mum's experience, I watched her get the finest treatment and come out the other side, having been through hell and having to face her demons, and be straight for a number of years, even before succumbing back to alcohol. Unfortunately, she got involved with heroin at an early age, and I think that that's a terrible drug, because I think it can leave somewhat of a hole in the human soul that can never be, or that can never be filled again. And I think any survivors of being addicted to that particular drug, or any opiate-based drug, you know, it takes an amazing amount of work. So what I'm trying to say is that the 12-step program didn't actually work for my mum on a consistent level throughout her life. She would get better, and then unfortunately she would relapse. So Turn Up for Recovery was set up by Melia Clapton, who is Eric's wife, and Eric has a treatment center in Antigua called Crossroads Center. He also puts on a guitar festival, a music festival called the Crossroads Guitar Festival, to raise funds for the treatment center in Antigua, and also to help people who wouldn't ordinarily be able to afford the treatment. Now, with Turn Up for Recovery as well, what I feel that the idea behind it is to sort of provide a more contemporary and cool, if you like, gateway to abstinence-based recovery for people who are struggling. I think in the rock and roll world, or in the live music world especially, you know, there is a tendency to lean on drink and drugs to get you, if you're touring a long time, to get you through the night, or you need to drive long hours, or you just fall into it, you know. And also perhaps that people who used to enjoy to go to gigs and then have felt that perhaps they can't go to gigs anymore because there's too much temptation. I think that perhaps Turn Up for Recovery, you know, might provide, if you like, that extra safe haven at live shows that would perhaps prevent people from, you know, succumbing to triggers or, you know, things like that. So, so that's it really. You know, Turn Up for Recovery, their website's turnupforrecovery.org. There's a lot of information there. And my role as an ambassador really is to raise awareness where I can with concerts that I'm doing. Then I can donate part of the funds for that, and spread the word, and also provide an outlet on my merchandise stands for the literature, which you know, which I tend to carry around, you know. And anybody who might be struggling at the gig or has an interest in it, you know, these leaflets are there, and you know, if I can help anybody along the way by providing that, then that's a, you know, I would say a worthy cause. And then of course, on a more fundamental level, music has saved my soul and made it possible for me to survive the challenges and difficulties, both inward and outward, that I've faced. And it is the healer that transcends all languages. And it's a magic that I'm honored and grateful to be able to participate in.
Right, and let me mention that in early September, you're going to be coming to Tampa, and a rehab center, Turning Point of Tampa, is going to sponsor a concert where you and your acoustic guitar, maybe a friend, maybe no friend, are going to play some of your music, some of the Harrison music, some of the Clapton music, and talk about recovery, and maybe turn this thing on its ear where it's stylish to be in recovery. You know, being in recovery is something to be proud of, not a social stigma. You know, the people, especially those with a genetic tendency to be addicted, or those who have been addicted to heroin, which is addictive for life once you've tried it once, for those people to be able to say, hey, I'm proud to tell you I'm in recovery. Just like Eric Clapton is proud to tell you he's in recovery. Just like Will Johns is saying, this is cool. This is the thing to be. You're a young musician. Don't get hooked. If you are hooked, it's cool to be in recovery. Tune up your guitar, tune up yourself, and get in recovery. So if anybody is going to be in Tampa in early September and would like to see this concert, or if you'd like to sponsor Will in your community, anywhere, he eventually, with the cream of Clapton, does tour and may be in your community and may have an acoustic guitar and be able to speak to young and older musicians and people who know that musicians are cool about this important cause. something. When you did the Ginger Baker concert, how much rehearsal goes on before a concert like that? How much of a perfectionist is Eric when he directs these concerts?
Well, I think that Eric has his core band, and in the case of the Ginger Baker concert, most of the songs were songs that weren't too far out of his recent set. Whereas with the recent concert, the Jeff Beck concert, obviously all the music was Jeff Beck's music. And I think that he would have been working very, very hard. Although having said that, there was a lot of times when he left the stage at the Jeff Beck concert because Jeff Beck's band would have carried it on for a while. Ronnie Wood and Rod Stewart, of course, because they would have been, in the Jeff Beck group way back when. So they had their lineup. So without wanting to give too much of the game away, Eric's the consummate professional, and once again, like I was alluding to with the blues language, as it were, it's a universal language, so you can anticipate and you know what the changes are with a lot of the music, and with Eric's songs as well. I mean, they're just so classic, and a lot of them have been, in the mix for over, 50 years. So days rather than weeks, I would say, to answer the question, Alan.
Right. And then, how old were you during the Journeyman album recordings, and tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I would say I was about, I think 15. So I'd already, I'd already been playing the guitar for a little bit. Definitely been stretching my vocal cords, and had an idea that, that I wanted to pursue that line of, that as a profession. I was in the studio when Eric was recording Bad Love, especially the vocals, which was exhilarating.
Yeah.
And he also taught me that opening riff of Bad Love, which was exciting, and another, if you like, little string to my bow. I mean, one of the greatest things which which has just popped into my mind was, being picked up from school by Eric a lot of the time, because he picked me up in a Ferrari Testarossa, no less. So I'd know that he was coming, and I'd be sort of lurking about the school gates, and then all of a sudden, this amazing supercar would come roaring up the street, and all my friends at school would be like, "Whoa, look at that car!" And then I'd just get to walk through them all and get into it, and off we'd roar down the road. That was pretty cool,
That is still very cool. Very cool. But I think you told was somebody was staying with Eric at the time of the recording of Journeyman. Now, was Phil Collins there, or was that another?
Yeah, my memory is a little shaky, but definitely around that time, I remember doing. We went to lunch during the rehearsals, and we, in fact, no, we left the rehearsals to go to lunch, and as we were walking to the cars, Phil Collins stopped and said, "Oh, left my jacket behind." And I said, "Phil, don't worry, mate, no jackets required." which was, of course, his album at the time. So everybody was, oh, very funny, Will. But another thing that we used to do, Eric and I were morning people. We'd get up early, hence going fishing a lot and stuff. But sometimes everybody would be sleeping upstairs. Phil Collins, Greg Fillinganes, Nathan East and stuff. And we'd be down in the kitchen, and the mischievous streak would come on, and we'd get the pots and pans off the wall in the kitchen, and wooden spoons, and go upstairs and creep into their rooms, and then bash the pots and pans with wooden spoons and wake them up, you know, and get everybody up that way. Which,
it's hard to imagine Eric Clapton doing that to Phil Collins, but it's good to know that they're human and that they're pretty funny guys.
Yeah, definitely. There was always some mischief going on, you know, always some pranks and, you know, funny stuff. Come say hi.
So let's not forget your own music. I know you're, you know, very polite to talk about everyone else's music. I've listened to your albums. I think they're sensational. What you want to tell us a little bit about each of these albums and then what you're working on now?
Sure. Well, Count on Me was the first one, and that's the one with the stripy jumper on. The title track, Count on Me, was more a prayer to myself, that I could count on myself, if that makes any sense, that I would try and stay true to my beliefs. And sometimes it's hard, and it feels hard, and you're swimming against the tide. And then sometimes, some days, it just comes naturally and you don't even have to try. So, you know, your darkest days are behind you. It's time to step into the light. There's a song as well on that called On My Back, and that's about having a partner, a significant other on your back, and the joys of having them on your back, because it's okay. Of course, with all of my songs, if you look a little deeper into all of the lyrics, with pretty much almost every song that I've ever written, it's all completely filthy and erotic, but that's another story. It depends if you've got time to look that far into it. The next album was Hooks and Lines. In between, and actually at the time of Count on Me and up till Hooks and Lines, I was working in the commercial fishing sector, taking people out deep sea fishing with a rod and line, and Hooks and Lines represents me not having to go and endanger my hands in the middle of the English Channel hunting cod and conger eels and sharks and stuff anymore. And the cover art features me bursting out of the sea with the guitar. Yeah, now I only go to sea when I want. That album features a song called Never Rains, which I wrote about a relationship that I had with a lovely lady in California. When we broke up, I came back to England and found myself in rainy London. And the line is, it never rains in your town, which was LA, but it pours down in mine, which is London. And of course that lyric relates to the emotional gravity. You know, I didn't feel that the relationship meant quite as much to her as it did to me. Something Old, Something New album is what it said on the tin. As far as some of the songs were brand new that I wrote for the album, and some of them I revisited from earlier in my career, from the band Cloud9, just songs that just never got recorded properly, but I felt were great songs. And I did the demos on this very computer that I'm talking to you on, my trusty old 2015 MacBook Pro. And I made the demos, and the drummer that I was working with pulled out just before we were about to go into the studio, and I was so cross, well, I was reluctant to stop the momentum, so I decided to just go ahead with the demos that I'd created on the laptop here, and I programmed the drums myself and tried to make them sound like a real drummer in the songs that I felt like they needed to sound like that. Others less so, because the songs were a more contemporary vibe. And so that one is quite what I would say at the moment is my most contemporary sounding, what I would call contemporary blues, or my slant on it. Beautiful. And then my most recent album, which I started during the pandemic, I started the album after the hard lockdown, when we were allowed to have 3 people in a room at the same time. Then I got my band in a room and we recorded the backbone of the album live. And then I got pneumonia, and which was also suspected TB, nearly died. Touch wood, luckily I didn't, and here I am talking to you good people. And I was able to finish the album, but I also had to rehabilitate myself of how to sing after having such a difficult lung-based disease, especially during the pandemic. And so I also stopped smoking when I got ill. So that was a big help. So the Blues Daddy album was well, it's mostly 99.9% blues classics, B.B. King songs, Willie Dixon, old Fleetwood Mac, the songs that I love that historically I would go to different countries, for example, to Russia or to Czech Republic or France or Spain or anywhere. I would just go myself and play with a pickup band of local musicians and blues musicians. These are all blues standards, and you know, being that kind of musician, you should be able to get on the stage anywhere, to a blues jam anyway, and play any one of these songs. So that's what that was about. And the title track, Blues Daddy, was the only original on there, which is very simple turnaround that I wrote on slide guitar, just about a daddy who plays the blues when he's at home and goes out on the road and plays the blues when he's out working, and that's all he does. Blues Daddy.
Beautiful.
And those are the ones that are released, and I'm busily trying to finish my up and coming album, which is Yin and Yang, which is going to be all original and quite contemporary. Some new sounds, and I'm quite excited about that. It's been taking forever. That was inspired as well by being forced onto the computer during the pandemic. Obviously, everything in a computer-based world is ones and zeros, black and white, up and down, if you like. And I found that people were also quite polarized, either believing this or that, without going into too much detail what this and that might have been. And there didn't seem to be much ability for conversation or sharing of ideas, because no, this is, I believe this, and you're obviously that, so we can't talk anymore. And I saw a lot of people's relationships, including my own, dissolve, and people who were friends for all their lives all of a sudden weren't talking to each other because of certain beliefs and stuff, which I just thought was absolutely crazy. I would love to think that we can have a conversation about things, and maybe you've got a better idea that through our conversation I might come around to, or I might have an idea that maybe you'd like to come around to. But at the end of the day, being able to have that conversation and being able to share our thoughts and feelings surely should take more importance than holding on to our beliefs so rigidly. But it was a very difficult time anyway. I feel like I'm going on and on, but that's what inspired the Yin and Yang album. There's a lot going on. That's why it's taken so long, I guess.
It's going to be great. So as far as what now, you have a lot of good videos on your website, right? Are most of your good videos on the website, or they're on YouTube also? I don't.
They're recall. On YouTube, yeah. There's a one-stop shop. I have a YouTube channel, which is Will John's Music, and if you just put that into YouTube, I have a logo which is what I like to call the Willouette, which is this thing here that you see. Yeah, that's the Willouette.
The Willouette, I like that. Very neat.
And there's a lot of videos there. There's the videos as well of the concert for Ginger Baker and me performing with Eric. There's original videos that we've made for some of the songs for the albums. Then there's also a lot of live shows as well. And then I've also tried to playlist some of the, how, some of the videos from that fans have shot from their phones and stuff from the audience.